Hello and welcome to Stay in Your Lane, a episode by episode podcast on the anime Serial Experiments Lain. My name is Lokomasi, and with me are my co-hosts Fefner Masamune.
Hi, hello, it's me, Befner, she, her. You might know me from, I don't know, LPs, the last podcast we did about Lupin Ranger versus Pot Ranger. You might want to listen to those and also watch Lupot. It's my opinion.
No shame if you don't. There are a lot of cops in it. Also joining me is Alice.
Hi, Alice, she, her. You might know me from lots of podcasts. I don't care. I've been a couple.
Finally joining me is Jenner.
Hey, I'm Jenner, she, her. You don't know me, and you don't want to.
Well, it took 3 people saying it, but it made me realize I forgot to give my pronouns. I'm he, him.
Yeah, we'll just edit those in. Don't worry about it.
We don't have to edit. We can't talk about editing. It's a bad joke. They said so on Twitter.
Well, have you ever considered that maybe Twitter's wrong?
We can retcon this. We have the technology.
And today, we are talking about the first episode of Serial Experiments Lain, Layer 01, Weird.
This is in the present day at the present time we are discussing.
Present day. Present time.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, let's start with the OP, because I think that happens before the title card that I just referenced. The OP is really good. I don't know if I have anything intelligent to say about it. Duvet kicks ass, and I wish I could find...
Man, like, that 90s music.
I wish I could find more covers on it, but, like, if you search for Duvet cover, you just get a bunch of blankets. You don't get a whole lot of people singing the song Duvet.
But maybe that's actually a part of it. Have you ever considered that?
It's such a good song
Layers.
from the 90s. Listening, I was like, oh man, this is bringing back the AMV vibes from back in the late 90s, early aughts.
Funny that you should mention AMVs.
We're gonna watch a couple?
Boa did not write the song Duvet for Lane. That was an existing song that the company producing Lane bought the rights for. I don't know if Boa is even aware that Duvet was used in an anime. Like, they have to be aware now, but I don't know how long that took.
I'm gonna tweet them right now. At Boa, did you know?
Another thing we have to address from the OP, because it's technically part of the OP, is what Fefner's already referenced. The present day. Present time.
That wasn't Fefner, that was me. I made that reference.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Falling apart. We've been recording for 4 minutes and we're falling apart.
Maybe you are.
Yeah, you're already dead. You know,
half of this podcast is drunk.
Look, we're drunk and you're the one messing up. Consider for a moment that you were lecturing me.
I've had nothing but a perfect track record these 4 minutes.
Yeah, we haven't
Anyways, what I was going to bring up is that, having only seen one episode, do any of you have any theories on what the hell that means? Because there is no consensus on what that means. Nobody knows for sure why every episode opens like that.
I think it means that time is a fuck. I think it means that time does not matter.
So
It's happening now.
Are you saying that time might not be real?
It's not. It's fake.
So I have it's not really a theory so much as it is me noticing a thing. Present day reminds me a lot of the whole derisive kind of current year meme, which is funny because Lane actually happens before 4chan, which means it's before this meme. But like, there's this sort of like joking kind of like, how could this happen in current year, where you actually say current year as a kind of like to imply that the universe is on some kind of course that makes sense. And it, it obviously doesn't, the world doesn't progress from like along a set path. The present day is kind of an ephemeral idea that we are holding on to and doesn't actually mean the things we probably want it to mean.
Before the record, I fucking hate that meme because I feel like people use it to just
Oh,
be
same.
edgy about social justice.
Oh, absolutely
would hate-
same. For the record, it is incredibly shitty. But it was the first thing I thought
If
about,
you
and the weird, like, bizarre
Yeah,
laugh
I figured
just
that was
made it
how you
even
felt, but
worse.
you didn't make it clear, so I wanted to give you a
How-
chance to say
Yeah.
fuck the meme.
How could you hate memes in the year of our Lord 2020?
Did you literally just hear the current year?
Anyway, clearly it's either a prequel or sequel line to the lyrics in Flying Freedom from Sonic Adventure 2, Distant Place, Distant Time. I don't know why my brain went there, but it did. And now I've got Flying Freedom stuck in my head.
Serial Experiments Lain predicted Sonic Adventure. And this essay I will.
So,
It's gonna be really weird when Rouge the Bat just appears.
I haven't made my prediction on what that sentence means, but do continue.
no, I was about to say, so what do you think of this, Jenner?
Alright, so I've decided, and we're going to see how long I can keep this bit, that since this show has already come out swinging quite depressing, that I'm going to try and be as optimistic as possible in all interpretations of this media. So I've decided that the present day, ha ha ha, menacing laugh, is actually that every day is the present, and you should be grateful for every blessed day that you live, for it is a present that has been given to you.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'll weigh in with my bit. The thing that's interesting to me isn't opening the anime with present day, present time. A lot of shows do that. To me, the interesting thing is that he laughs afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, the idea of this is funny to this person, whoever the fuck this is. And I don't know what to make of that.
Present day, present time, Ronaldo soccer. Ha ha ha.
Why is
Another
he
thing-
laugh?
There are a couple of baseline things that I should probably set up as we go into this first episode. And one of them is that one of the producers of Lane, I forget which one, has said that he wanted this show to cause a divide between Japanese fans and American fans. He wanted them to fight over what the show meant, and he wanted those divisions to fall along cultural lines. He failed because nobody knows enough about Lane to have anything cultural matter. The way I've heard it summarized is, turns out confusion is a universal emotion.
I kind of like that, actually.
But I want to know if, was this part of it? Did he think this was going to mean something different to English speakers versus non-English speakers?
I mean, I want...
Because it's in English, in the original Japanese and in the dub. This voice is in fluent, unaccented English.
it's a Japanese show, so if you're using English in a Japanese show, that does kind of mean something different to that original audience than, say, us, who speak English.
Yeah, I actually thought that it was part of the dub when I first watched it because I watched the dub first. And then I looked up the sub version, and it was still there. It's still in English.
Yeah. What I know, my spouse is fluent in Japanese, and so we've gone to Japan a couple times. Haha, flex. And I know that a lot of people in Japan learn English in high school, but they don't retain it because they don't have much use to keep using it because everybody speaks Japanese.
Yeah.
Which I learned Spanish in high school.
Yeah, but I found is the people that do speak English will speak English with English speakers because they're excited to flex their English knowingness. And my experience with this was one, having a drunk woman try to seduce me in a public bath, but two, that English words that I know the definition of that means something to me, they have a completely different definition of. And they'll say, hey, do you want to bath? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll take a bath. And for them, contextually, bath means something completely different. And now all of a sudden I'm naked with this woman, which, I mean, yeah, I understand, that is bath. But I thought, I'll be in one tub and you'll be in another tub and we'll do that cool, separate tubs thing. No, we are in a tub together now. Okay, yeah, I didn't know that, but sure. So, contextually, these words that I understand as I will be in a bath now are, no, we are in a bath. I did not know that is the context of bath in Japan, but sure.
I mean, yeah,
So-
I guess we have. I guess Japan traditionally has a different reckoning of different reckoning of years. The word time can mean different things depending on where you're from.
Oh, and
It occurs to me.
they're really weird about seasons too. Like they're really uptight about what season it is. Like they will police the season. I'll be like, oh, it's such a lovely spring day, and they're like, it is not spring yet. That was another experience I had. Like, what? You're just it feels spring. No, spring is an absolute concept.
Oh, so
Okay.
they're just like people from like Connecticut then.
Wait for the solstice, motherfucker!
It
You're
occurs
wearing
to me
white
that if
after
I
Labor Day, you're
Wait,
dead
fuck, is
now.
solstice? Is it solstice or
occurs-
equinox?
Listen here, Luciana, wearing white after Labor Day. You're
What is that,
dead
Luca?
now. Sorry, Luca.
it occurs to me that if I wanted to have this conversation, I should have invited a native Japanese speaker, because like now it's just four Americans going. I wonder what the Japanese mean by this.
So, I would like to.
Yeah, let me preface. Like, for all I know, that is not a universal, every Japanese person into its bath as now I am getting naked with this girl. Maybe it was just like that one horny Japanese lady who wanted to get naked with me decided that bath.
Maybe you
fine,
just ran into a
meant
pickup
that,
artist.
Yeah, maybe I ran into a horny, 48-year-old Japanese lady pickup artist, and that's just a thing that can happen to me sometimes. Normally, this is a normal occurrence in people's lives. I'm sure. Like everybody, like come on, whomst among us has not been seduced by a 48-year-old drunken Japanese lady in Japan? Raise your hand if you have.
Sadly, I cannot say how.
Fucking bragging about it.
Anyways, we should probably talk about the actual episode
I'm
at some
glad to
point.
see
Yeah.
all four people.
Also, I should have said equinox. Damn it.
I'm glad to see all four people raise their hands. Let's continue.
Okay, so can we talk about how the first episode of Serial Experiments Lain comes out swinging, taking 0 prisoners? When I watched this with my wife, she was horrified, and I felt really bad for not warning her because I didn't know.
Alice, before we go any further, I think we should clarify what version we've all seen. I have watched both the dubbed. I have watched both the dubbed and subbed version of this. Fefner, tell the audience which ones you watched.
I watched the sub version, so I'm with Alice on team subbed at the moment.
Yeah, I watched the dubbed version because a person told me to watch the dubbed version. They claimed it was better. Additionally, we should probably put a trigger warning before we continue talking about this.
Yes, we should.
Yeah, I'll put one at the beginning of the episode.
Okay.
Good.
But I'll say it again here because we're about to just now actually start talking about it. This series does start with an on-screen depiction of a suicide. And that suicide is the driving factor of this episode. It's more of an inciting incident for the series overall, but it is important.
It's I wouldn't say it's the most graphic thing, but it's really intense. Wow.
Yeah. Nobody knows me, and you don't want to, but this crew actually does know me. Unfortunately for them, I lost somebody to suicide, so this is a sensitive topic to me. But I've made an oath that I'm going to be optimistic about everything and interpret it optimistically, everything that happens in Lane. And this is going to be a bit that I'm going to definitely stick through this entire episode. So, or this entire show. So, but yeah, this was pretty jarring. So far, pretty realistic depiction of what how it affects you. As we continue going through this, I think I'll talk a little bit more about the process of grief and stuff like that. And that'll be like a breakaway from the bit of being optimistic, but still optimistic. So we'll talk more about that. But with this first episode. Yeah, how numb and the disbelief, because the first stage of grief is denial. So you can see, like, Lane is just in complete denial about Chisa Yamada. I think that's her name, right?
Yeah, Chisa
Yamada being dead.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I want to talk about is in the lead up to this, there are cuts to a psychedelic background with text on it. I believe the first page of this text says, the reason you should do that is something you have to figure out for yourself. And we don't know what this text is exactly. I'm going to say this phrase a lot. The show never comes out and says exactly what this is. I think I know, and I think you can figure it out with this episode alone. So I'm going to say what I think when we get to that part. But before we get to that part, does anybody have any theories on like what this text is? Why are we maybe not why we're seeing it, but why is this text important?
There's some suggestion early on that this is something either she says saying herself to herself or to someone else, or something that was said to her. I'm not sure.
Yes.
I'm not sure who or what, but the juxtaposition of like the back and forth cuts between this text, her action, this text, a thing about her, kind of suggests that it's being said to her or by her.
It's because the second phrase she says, I don't have to be here.
Yes.
She says something, but it's silenced out, and you can't read lips because this is an anime. And then it cuts to the text on the screen.
Yeah. That
I don't have a whole lot more to say about this particular scene. It's very brutal, very graphic. Well, I say graphic. The graphic parts are mostly through what happens around her. We don't really see too much of her.
It's a pretty brutal death because like one, she falls, but two, like when you finally see her, she's like under a vending machine and there's blood, like she hit and then like something fell on top of her.
It's not a clean fall. She hits several things on the way down.
Yeah, and that's gruesome. And then like people are just like, oh, that's a spectacle that we have just seen, and we're gonna chatter about it.
Oh, not just any
days.
people. It's
But- and
specifically
they're utterly
it's literally
Sorry,
like
continue.
an old pervert, and what I assume is a compensated dating scenario. That seems to be the gist that I'm getting there, and that to be those two being sort of the our audience, if you will, for this macabre spectacle just makes it worse. It's just so bad feeling. It really makes the whole. It really sets this sort of really like bleak tone for when we get to Lane herself.
I will say, there are definitely some strange things about like the overall animation through here, but I feel like it's not as pronounced as it is in later scenes. Like, other than the psychedelic cutaways, it's almost normal. Yeah, like I'll mention an effect that starts pretty much next scene, I believe. That just sort of continues throughout at least episode 1, but that's not present.
Just to sort of lighten the mood, because I watched the English dub, in the background, one of the people reacting screams, "Oh no, this is horrible!" And that is absolutely 100% Spike Spencer doing his Shinji Ikari voice. It is the only good thing about this scene, because I love hearing that voice, and anytime Spike voices a character and is even close to that voice, I go,
Yeah.
hell yeah, Shinji's here.
Lol.
This all... I mentioned to Jenner, I'm sad that Spike Spencer wasn't in the dub for Utena, so he couldn't have done the hat trick for weird-ass
God,
animes.
who we would have been though?
I decided Miki.
I hate that so much. I agree, but I hate it. I hate it a lot.
Have you heard Mickey's English voice? He's one of the few actors I actually don't like all that much
I
in the English
know
dub.
he's every version of Mickey except for the original is terrible. I don't know why it's a curse.
He's Gary Oak in the English dub.
So, do we want to talk about the trinity of weird animes now, or is that going to be an ending topic, you think?
We can talk about that at the end. We didn't really
Okay.
need that for background. So Jenner's not back yet, but I am going to move on to the next scene. After this, we cut to what I call Lane on the train, and I just like it because it rhymes. Lane hears a lot of people talking. She yells at them to be quiet, and then there's no more talking. Does anybody have any comments on this scene? Because I have one that I like that you can figure out just from watching this episode once, and I wanted to see if anyone else did.
Alright, so first and foremost, I should mention the thing I was just talking about, the effect. So anytime there are like significant shadows in this episode, there are just blood splatters just lining the shadows. That's, like, it's really obvious. You just get this right from the get-go after
That
that
reminds
first
me,
scene.
I forgot to mention that we actually have a scene of Lane walking to the train.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
But yeah,
I'm not sure what's diegetic and what's not. I can't tell if she actually tells people to be quiet or if she has decided to tune them out, because it's people don't seem to actually have a reaction to her, but it's also quieter, and it's like,
they definitely react. They look at her and there's like a bunch of sounds
yeah,
in the audio.
but it's such a weird, like, disconnected thing. I don't know. Like, it's just something
All
about
right,
it.
Jenner,
Something about it makes me wonder if it's just weird.
Jenner, do you have any comments on Lane on the train?
So the train is a metaphor for trains,
And that's enough of that.
and
So the thing that I noticed that I wanted
I
to
wish I
talk
had that
about,
power where I could just tell people to shut up and they would.
when Lane is
I
hearing
don't.
all these people talking,
That
if you look in the
power.
background, nobody is moving their lips, nobody's looking at each other, nobody looks like they're having a conversation.
Yeah, but she's still hearing voices. So my theory is that they weren't even talking. She was just hearing voices. She screamed, "Shut up!" They looked at her because, look, I've actually been on a train in Japan. So this is where I'm drawing this from. Nobody fucking talks on the train in Japan. Nobody has casual conversations in Japan. In fact, when I tried to start casual conversations with Japanese people in Japan on the train, my spouse said, "Don't do that. It's creepy." So I think knowing that about Japan, that nobody seems to ever talk on trains in Japan. As somebody who is not Japanese and who has only visited Japan as a tourist, I've decided to draw these sweeping conclusions about what it's really like to be Japanese in Japan, which is a completely fine and good thing to do. That she was hearing voices and then screamed "shut up," and that's why people reacted, not because they were talking, but because she shouted "shut up" when they weren't, and made a ruckus in a silent train
Nothing,
because nobody talks in trains in Japan.
nothing like
The
yelling at people
dream.
to shut up when no one is actually talking.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Lane just internalizes extremely well. Again, it's a thing we'll be seeing later in the episode, but just in this scene, the fact that she's standing there alone, and it is just eerily quiet. Don't quite
Mhm.
know where the shut up portion comes into play. Don't know how she has that power, but maybe we'll figure it out later.
Yeah, there
Another
is
note that I really like about the train, I don't think it's animated that unrealistically, but it is weirdly eerie the way that train moves.
Yeah,
Like, that's,
with the box cars and everything.
yeah,
it's
like
it's
the way the
it's
boxcar moves so much and the train bumps. Like, I've been on subways. It's not that unrealistic. There's just something weird to me about the way it's animated, and I can't put my finger on what.
yeah. I
Something
will.
weird, but I can't put my finger on what may as well be this
Yeah,
podcast's
yeah,
motto.
yeah.
Hmm.
I will say that I grew up, spent a little bit of time with the deaf community, and the deaf community has this I guess motto thing that they say a lot. It's just like you blew it, you missed an opportunity. They sign the train has train go sorry, which is like you've missed your train, right? Your opportunity has been blown. So it's something I'm going to think of. Well, Lane's obviously on the train. She has not missed her opportunity yet. Not that Japan knows anything about American deaf culture. In fact, Japan has a completely different sign language than American Sign Language. But shh, we're just going to assume that the person who created Lane knows about American Sign Language and is telling us that Lane hasn't missed her opportunity yet. Because I'm making optimistic interpretations about Lane.
I mean, you don't need to necessarily assume that, because the idea of missing a train is something that is kind of common to anyone who has the experience of missing a train.
All right. After the train, we then cut to Lane going to school.
I've gone to
This is
school once or twice in my life.
is this going to be the podcast? Am I going to say something and Jared's going to be like, "That happened to me once"?
I started with the person I care about dying. Let's see how many things I have in common with it. Let's go.
Uh,
Is
well,
Lane drinking a soda? Dang, I've done that.
odd that you say person that Lane cares about. Because in the scene we're about to discuss, which is Lane learning about some of the stuff that's happened following Chisi Yamada's suicide, she doesn't know who Chisi Yamada even was. She does not recognize the name either from her personal life or from the fact that surely somebody would have mentioned recently
Like
that a student committed suicide.
she's a little freaked out about the idea. I mean, it's upsetting, but it does. Yeah,
Yeah.
she ever like, we never see her like, oh, is it that girl I saw once or talked to once? No, it's just the idea of it itself is kind of upsetting, and is why she has her reaction later.
Before that, um, the the actual scene in the classroom just opens on hysterical crying, which brings me to one of the few things I feel comfortable talking about in the sub versus dub.
As an expert on crying a lot, Loka, do tell us.
I like the dub crying more than the sub crying. The sub crying is more hysterical and more emotional, but I don't think it fits the body language that well.
Julie, come on, don't make such a big deal out of it.
Yeah, really, it's just some stupid prank.
ジュリー、気にしない方がいいって。そうだよ、いたずらに決まってるじゃん。
She is more like has been crying for a long time and does not seem able to stop type of crying rather than has just started and is wailing her heart out to me.
Resident crying expert Luca Mossi here to tell us all about crying.
No, that makes sense. It did feel like the way that they had animated that girl in the back was not quite the hysterical sound I was hearing when I compared there.
Yeah, and this isn't necessarily like slamming the voice actress. The voice actress probably didn't know what the animation was going to look like. It's the animator's fault for not animating
cry.
it, right?
Just do a cry, come on. Do it.
Or maybe they did that on purpose to create a weird dissonance thing. Either way, I like the dub crying more.
Yeah, from what I know about like voice acting, especially for early like 90s and earlier, early aughts anime, you don't even see the scene you're animating. The voice coach just says, "Okay, now do this," and then you do it, and then they say, "No, like do it differently, like this, like." Put more, I don't know, bofa in it, and you're like, "What's bofa?" And then they're like, "Yaha, you fool!" But
Yeah, when you're making an animated thing, you do the voice work first, and then they sync the animation to the voice work, because that's easier than the opposite. You have a lot more freedom in the way you can play things, which is why it's so weird to me that, like, she gave this hysterical performance, and then they showed a subdued crying. But I don't want to spend too long on this, because it's not actually that important. I am just here being the big dub defender.
Yeah, what is important is, once again, I'm going to be talking about animation slightly before the actual scene, but just Lane out in the schoolyard looking at her own shadow, which has a different effect than the blood splatters. It's a weird, trippy effect. I don't know what to call it. Before she looks up and everybody just sort of turns into shadows. So, once again, internalizing. Maybe a little too good at it.
No,
Sketchy. They get sketchy. I think that happens before she gets to the classroom, because she's walking to the classroom.
Yep, that's out in the yard.
It's not. It ain't that deep, Fefner. This is just Serial Experiments Lain predicting I go.
Anyways, we should talk about these characters by name, because they have names. The girl who is crying is named Julie. The girl who's actually comforting her is named Alice. And the girl who is nearby and maybe trying to comfort her is named Reika. Alice, Julie, and Reika are characters that appear in a lot of Chiaki Nonaka's work. One of the earliest things he wrote was a video game called Alice in Cyberland, and the three main characters are Alice, Julie, and Reika. Or Alice, Juri, and Reika, depending on your transliteration. And he will use those three names all the time, to the point where in Digimon Tamers there was a character introduced late. He had a hard time thinking up of a name, and somebody reminded him, "Hey, you have a Juri and a Reika in here. You forgot to put an Alice." And he went, "Okay, I'll name this character Alice." It doesn't mean anything. I think he just likes having those names.
Yeah, they're just like Sid Final Fantasy.
Yeah. I just like Sid.
Just like Biggs and Ledge.
Yeah. I don't know. My theory is like, yeah, even when you didn't really know the person, then as we continue watching the show, I'm sure we'll get more revealed to us. But even when you didn't know the person, it's still kind of disturbing to lose somebody that was like in your school, in your class, and realize, oh, they're dead, and they did a thing that is kind of traumatic. It's jarring, even if you didn't have a close relationship with them. You might not have been friends with them. You might not have even cared about them, but now they're gone. So now you kind of do care, or at least that would be my how I would feel. And maybe I am biased, but yeah, that'd be how I would feel.
I was actually in a situation similar to what Lane is here during my last year of law school. No one committed suicide, but a student was struck by a car and killed during the last semester of my 3L year. And I had spoken to her maybe once. Me personally, I stayed away from a lot of the grieving stuff because I didn't want to go to those places and pretend that I knew her when I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But you are right, it is just weird because
it's jarring,
you just think about like, oh yeah, I remember somebody talking about this in class. Oh, it was her, and now she's gone. Fuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so like sudden. But one thing I do want to help folks with, from what I understand of this kind of stuff, is it's died by suicide, not like any other terminology. It's the preferred terminology because, yeah, it's suicide is like this condition. Is it like you wouldn't say, you like died by cancer, right? That would be what you would say basically. It's like this. It's a condition that is killing them, not them that is killing them. Sorry, that's all.
I'm just thinking, like, now I have 25 years of saying the wrong thing to start working
But you
towards.
didn't know, and I mean, you did know me for like, we didn't even start talking about this kind of stuff until just this episode, so I didn't like tell you, oh no, you should probably say it this way. Yeah.
No, it's fine. I have a lot of effort ahead of me, and I'm just preparing for it, mentally.
Guess who hasn't removed the word guys from their vocabulary yet and has been working on that for a fucking year? You good.
Anyways, I should talk about what actually happens in this scene.
Yeah, here's an important plot moment. Hello.
The scene opens with, as I said, Alice and Reika are comforting some better than others, Jury. Lane sees this but doesn't go to them. She just looks at them for a moment and then looks back towards the blackboard. And then Alice approaches Lane and, through a bit of back and forth, explains that Jury, along with several other classmates, have received an email from Chisa Yamada dated after her death. Lane apparently doesn't know what a computer is.
Lucky her.
Because when she is told about emails, she responds like Snake in Metal Gear. Email?
Colonel, how do I check my email?
Lane, you've got an email from your brother that said aliens and monsters are attacking this place.
Yeah, that is really weird, actually. Like, it's funny, but it's also bizarre that she just... Who doesn't know how email works in what is apparently a fairly advanced, like, future that never was?
Well, I have a theory for why.
The
we
late
have
90s.
to talk about the towards the end of the episode before I bring back up my theory. So I'm just going to write it down so I don't forget.
It's weird because, like, the computers look like they're from the late 90s, but when we will see a computer screen, like a computer working, that operating system looks like it's from 100 years later. Like, it's just...
I have a theory about that, and I'll talk about that.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Viewer at home, you might notice we're having a hard time keeping things chronological in Lane. That's because the chronology doesn't fucking matter. It's just a bunch of
it's fine.
that
I was about to say, like, that is kind of the point that, like, watching just the first episode, you will understand that, oh, the points don't matter and everything is in the order it wants to be.
Welcome to Serial Experiments Lain, where everything is made up and the plot doesn't matter.
But yeah, anyway, clearly Lane is just a video game protagonist that needs a tutorial. She's used email before, she'll use it again, but she needs to ask what it is now.
Oh, you remember to equip the buckler, Lane, it makes your parry window a bit longer by a couple seconds so you have more time to parry.
In preparation for this episode, for this episode of the podcast, watch this episode of the anime a few times. Once with Fafnir, once with Jenner. And I said both times I commented on Reika walking away from her hysterical friend to make fun of Lane for not knowing what an email is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a very teen thing to do. Just, oh, it's this emotionally difficult thing. I'm just going to leave that and go do something I understand, like being me.
I'll fuck that one up. Instead, I'm gonna own a person. Got him.
I think the scene also kind of establishes one of the disconnects with Lane, because I think she does care about Jury. I'm going to switch between calling her Jury and Julie because it's the sub and the dub use different names for her, and it's just my brain is wired to accept both of them, and I don't really question it. She does keep looking at her, and so we get to see shots back to her as more and more of her friends abandon her. And I think the implication of that is that Lane really clearly doesn't like this. She wants to help Jury, but she just doesn't. And then the reasons for why she doesn't are where we're all going to have our own interpretations.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's and this goes for the whole episode. The answer for why does Lane do X for me this whole episode is Lane seems like she spends most of this episode in some degree of dissociation.
I'm glad you said the word dissociation because it reminded me of something I wanted to say during the OP. Like I said, really like this OP, one of my favorite anime OPs, but every time I start watching it, I fucking dissociate. This, not the song, I listen to the song a lot, it's totally fine, but seeing it with the visual sends me to the fucking astral plane, and I don't know why.
I like that, like, you get, in this episode, you get kind of, dissociation could be a lot of things. It could look like different things. And sometimes it looks like, something more intense. And sometimes it looks like Lane sitting there kind of dumbfounded because someone is crying and there's a lot of emotion and stuff going on. And she just is a big old blank. Not because she doesn't.
Emotions? I think I know what those are.
Yeah.
I felt an
Yeah.
emotion once,
I
probably.
hated it. I regretted it the whole time. I mean, my thought on this is like, I have this theory. Not a theory. I know for a fact, at least from my experience, that like abuse is learned. So your abusers teach you abuse, and now you are abusive, and then you become abusive towards other people because of the powerlessness of your situation, because you can't really do anything actionable against your abusers to make them prevent them from abusing you. So you just lash out at people lower than you, and now you too are abusive.
Do you think this is a learned? So you think this is a learned thing?
Yeah. I just anticipate that Julie has a family that sucks, and she's in this situation where she's powerless to help the person she cares about, but she does know how to hurt people. So she's got, so she feels bad. She wants to make somebody else feel worse because, she's been abused and now she's become abusive. So she's just going to go over and bully Lane. That's something that she can deal with.
So you mean Reika, not Julie?
Yeah, sorry. Well, whoever is going to bully Julie, that's the one I'm talking about. She's the one. She's from some kind of abusive background, and she's going to pick on Julie because she's hurting inside and she wants somebody to hurt worse, and she doesn't know how to help people. She only knows how to hurt people. When you grow up in an abusive environment, you're not given many tools for being a healthy, constructive person. You're only really given tools to hurt people. And kind of to unlearn that abuse and learn an entire new skill set. Not that I would know anything about doing something like that.
Mm-hmm. I do kind of get a sense of hostility in that room, like the way that they asked Lane about the email, the way they talked to her that whole conversation, the way even though there's somebody comforting the crying girl, like there's something weirdly hostile, and it feels as if Lane is utterly alone in that room, even though there are other people. But it feels like maybe they're also the same way. They just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah. They do the background, the light patch trick, but with Lane and the other characters. So, like, in some shots, all the background characters will just be, like, sepia toned, and Lane is the only one that's normal colored. And it'll just happen. And you might not notice it at first, but it's weird.
I mean, me personally, I noticed it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It is front and center, just that the particular scene after this major plot point happens. It is just Lane trying to focus on a lesson, and the scene itself is just so well done because, again, yeah, everyone is in sepia tone, and they really echo that chalk sound.
Mm-hmm.
What I noticed, because I'm a furry, is the bears everywhere. There's like
Yeah.
bears, like in many scenes, and Lane seems to like bears. She's got bears on a lot of the stuff that she owns. It's so she likes bears, specifically brown bears. So my theory is if Lane plays her cards right, she can get the bear ending of this Silent Hill.
The last thing I wanted to mention about the classroom scene. Won't say anything about it right now, but at one point, Lane does start to see smoke emanate from her fingertips,
Mm-hmm.
and they
Smoke
whisper around
is
the
like, it's
room
like,
and
yeah,
do
it's
weird
like,
things.
I wouldn't. It's like more like energy trails than smoke, in my opinion. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Ghost energy.
yeah.
It's
Ghost energy.
but she says it as she's also that happens as she's kind of idly speculating like what would it be like to die. Like it's hard for me not to read that as the like having to confront mortality on this sleepy morning is kind of a little too much, and she is kind of fading back into a dissociative kind of fugue.
Yeah, it's like her spirit is leaving her body, but also Lane predicted vaping.
It's like, yeah, that's enough for me. I'm going back.
Goodbye.
I do want to establish. I'm running a couple 8-bits now, but let's continue.
Alice, I'm glad you said that because what I was going to say was this is another scene that people don't really know what to make of. Like everyone has their theory, but there's no consensus really. The idea that this is the show's way of telling you Lane is thinking about death is a very interesting idea, Alice.
Mm-hmm. Also, one thing I really appreciate about this scene that I didn't notice until I was scrubbing through it, there is just no transition between the end of the conversation where they're like, "Oh, you shouldn't be getting an email from a dead girl," and just the lesson. It just suddenly starts happening. You're in this space, and man, dissociation was a good word to bring up because that just fits this really entire episode, and I assume the entire series so well. Just again, time is a fuck. It doesn't make sense. We just move from one scene to the next unceremoniously.
Speaking of which, the next scene starts with Lane arriving home and going to her room, and I feel like we kind of have to talk about the room because the joke I made while watching this episode both times was that I should take some cues from Lane and start arranging the toys in my room as if they are judging my every move. Lane has a collection of stuffed animals, and it is very hostile for no goddamn reason.
Also, I'm 90% positive all these stuffed animals are actually outside.
And are casting shadows. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They're drawn like they're not there. I'm probably just going to put some pictures up because it'll be easier than trying to explain. But these animals don't look like they're there.
Yeah, I look. I know my bit is I'm supposed to make optimistic interpretations of stuff, but she might just be imagining this. And imagining things is fine. Being a creative person means that having a good imagination it just fills your life with happiness usually. Speaking of imagining things, you should listen to Imagine Me a Mutant. No, do continue.
Okay, real quick, scrubbing through this, I am 8 minutes 28 seconds into this video, Loka, just so you know where to put this, but this perspective is really fucking me up because some of these animals are clearly in front of the power poles in the background or whatever, but then it's really hard to tell if that other power pole is actually a power pole or part of the windowsill, like a divider, and it looks like some of those animals are just ever so slightly behind it. Jesus Christ, this animation. I adore how bizarre this animation is, but it also makes me vastly uncomfortable.
I love it when creatives break rules on purpose.
God, I'm just looking at this, and man, still image is breaking my brain more.
It's good. It makes you almost as. It's the same kind of visceral discomfort as you get from Paranoia Agent.
I was thinking like it gives you that feeling of reading a creepypasta, except it's an image.
Yeah.
Speaking of creepypastas, Lane is currently living in one
Yeah.
because she
Literally.
goes to check her email to see the email she got from a dead girl. And
It like
Alice, I
says
feel like
that like she's gonna inherit some money. She just needs to give this person her bank account. It's gonna be sorry. Go
Lane, I walked home with you once. Remember? I didn't tell you at the time, but I am a Nigerian princess.
Look,
Anyways,
meet me at
Alice,
Silent Hill. Let's make a deal.
Alice, I feel like you were ready to just go on a rant about this computer that Lane has.
Okay, so the computers look like it's 1999, which makes sense. This anime was made in 1998. But then she like
Uh-huh.
gets on this ain't Apple and ain't Microsoft. It's some future looking shit that looks like it's on a goddamn spaceship. And like it can talk to her. It has like a voice password. Like, what is this?
So,
Man,
Lane,
Capcom got really advanced.
Are they about to have like nano machines? Is that where we're going? Is it the war economy?
Lane says something later that makes me think of what this might be, but I did have a couple of things I wanted to say. Lane's operating system is called Communication OS. The font represents, or not represents, it's similar to the Commodore logo, the C that she has. And Communication OS, I think, was an unreleased OS by Apple.
Really?
Or it's a reference to Copland OS, which was an unreleased OS by Apple that may have operated similar to this. There are a ton of Apple references in this show because it's the 90s and it's about computers.
Yeah. Really? That is interesting.
Again, that might be a game of telephone between anime fans that I'm getting wrong. The one that I'm pretty sure about is the being referenced to Commodore. But I
Yeah.
think that there may have been an Apple OS that was supposed to look like this that never got made.
Yeah. Let's talk about tabletop role playing games. Japan imported some tabletop role playing games and actually knows what D&D is and has a long history with tabletop role playing games and like old TTRPGs and stuff like that. And one of the tabletop role playing games that Japan was familiar with at this time, according to my cursory research as somebody who's an expert on Japan because I've been there twice, is Shadowrun.
Ah, okay.
So I am suspecting that one of the neat things about the Shadowrun setting, I think, Alice, you're about as familiar with TTRPGs as I am, is they still have like 80s technology, except it's like 3076, and no, it's fine, don't worry about it. So the technology is still aesthetically 80s, but the technology level is like sci-fi bullshit. And I'm wondering if maybe Lane was influenced by that.
I mean, it is about the time where cyberpunk is definitely a thing, and cyberpunk's thing of having an 80s and late early 90s aesthetic married to obviously more advanced technology is kind of an established convention. So, I mean, it's not there's definitely some degree of what's the word I'm looking for here? Influence there.
Yeah, I know that like Hideo Kojima, he read Neuromancer. It's one of the reasons why he made Snatcher. There's like a lot of cyberpunk and stuff like that in like early cyberpunk in the like Japanese like consumer. So like that they would consume, we're brought over there. So it wouldn't like including Shadowrun. So I don't want to just put the entire blame on Shadowrun for this, but I will say like cyberpunk is a genre that Japan likes, and this is a good time. And it wasn't. It was kind of like they went back and forth. Like Japan already had cyberpunk ideas in their media before America was like, hey fellow kids, have you heard about Shadowrun and Neuromancer? That's interesting. We're already doing this stuff, but yeah, we'll add that. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Anyways,
we're like standing in an alleyway with a trench coat, like, hey kids, I want to learn about nano machines, and Hideo Kojima's like, give me that, just oh god, so good.
Machines, but tiny and they can do anything. My god.
You want to buy this supercomputer that's operated by a dolphin?
Hideo Kojima overdoses and... Okay, sorry, continue.
I think we should talk about the actual email that
Yeah.
Lane gets.
Yeah, it's important.
I don't have the script in front of me, so somebody can jump in and correct me if I miss anything out. Lane's talking computer. We never hear Chisa speak, so I don't know if this actually is supposed to sound like her or anything. But the computer starts to read Chisa's email. I remember she mentions, "I walked home with you once." The subs actually say just once, which is why I'm harping so much on she is not Lane's friend. They barely knew each other. Chisa's email goes on to say that this is not a prank, of course, but she says the people at school seem to think this is a prank. Which is weird, because I thought she got this email in the past, before everyone else got this email, or at the same time. So why is the email referencing things that shouldn't have been known at that time? And then she goes straight into the gonzo shit by saying, "I have not died, I have only given up my body. I am here on the Wired." Which, by the way, the Wired, as we should probably establish, is what they call the internet.
And as you know, it's a series of tubes.
As far as fake names for the internet goes, it's my favorite.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
It's for dope.
All right, Future Loca, just gonna mention that the shot at 1050 also fucking me up. These stuffed animals, I can't stand them. Anyway, back to the email.
Hefner is incredibly interested. Hefner's gonna be like, "Thanks, I hate it," for like 90% of the show.
While this email is being read, Lane asks, she talks to the computer, and she asks the same question twice. She asks, "Why did you die?" The first time, the email seems to proceed as normal, saying the whole thing about people think this is a prank, this isn't a prank. Then she asks it again, and this time the email actually answers her. And I say it answers her because it wouldn't make sense to say this just in the body of the email, unless the email was responding to Lane. But this is an important line. When Lane asks, "Why did you die?" Chisa Yamada responds with, "God is here."
God is here. Just climb up Corrin's tower and then use the power pole and you can find him.
In the English dub, she says, "Here, there is a God," which I kind of like that phrasing, sorry.
God, both of those are just creepy as hell.
I do not like the idea that God has chosen to stay on the internet. This is a hard-ass motherfucker. I do not like this idea.
They said there was a ghost in the machine, not like, the Godhead.
Yeah, it's the Holy Ghost. Come on.
Oh, Christ.
The Holy Ghost in the machine.
Fuck you.
God is here to lead the way, to save the day. Wicked little critter.
No, guys, y'all yell at me a little bit more. I deserve this.
That was pretty good. I'm willing to give that to you.
Me and Alice actually studied theology, so we're going to be trolling each other a little bit.
I took a single class on the Old Testament in my undergrad, but that's my extent of theology knowledge.
I went to a Catholic college, and yet most of my education is not in religion of any sort.
So,
Gonna be honest, honey, if you'd taken any religion classes at a Catholic college, they would have been bullshit.
So now that
Sorry.
we've established that
That's a Holy Ghost.
the
Father and
fucking
Son are
the
elsewhere.
fucking eschaton is imminentizing in Lane's bedroom now.
No,
So
the
Guess
get
this
that
is
one out of the
happening.
way. That's got to be one of the fucking seal judgments or something.
Not the Holy Ghost is on the internet. It's going to learn all this awful internet terminology.
It's just like that scene. It also ends really abruptly. Because every scene
Yeah.
in Lane seems to end really abruptly, and then all of a sudden it's just like, yeah, whatever. Like we did.
Yeah.
There was a thing that happened. Anyway, it's the next day or whatever. Maybe I guess.
Yeah, God, I was gonna mention, it's just, God is here, and they just zoom in on the kanji for God, and then it just cuts to the news. It's just a television with the news. People are eating dinner now.
I think what
I
she's
do-
like my no, let me do my joke first, because you're going to say something serious. My optimistic read of this is she's talking about that all of Dragon Ball Z is already finished here on The Wire. She's talking about Kami, the character in Dragon Ball Z, not God, the entity, and it was just a mistranslation. Okay, now, Loka, you can be serious.
I was going to say, I think the reason that here there is a God fucks me up more than God is here is because here there is a God implies that there is not a God.
Yeah.
The idea that, like, there is a God on the internet and there isn't one in real life.
There is a God on the internet, and it's me.
Which, I mean, that also kind of implies that there is more full and real in some way, which is also kind of upsetting.
The phrase "God is here" also kind of carries an implication, but I think the dub made it obvious to me even before I realized that I realized it. You know,
I what I appreciate about the subversion, which is just God is here, is the fact that like everything else is more or less kind of mundane. Like there was the suicide that happened,
why the
but
fuck
other
are we
than
talking
that,
about God?
God's here and life just continues on. What the fuck? I mean, we the viewers see things as strange, but you know, that's just us looking into the life of Lane, I guess. No one else is concerned about this but us.
Anyways, you mentioned everyone having dinner. I love this scene because it's probably the most straightforward scene in the whole episode. I finally felt like I understood something when I watched this the first time. Lane's dad is not
Eating
present.
dinner is a metaphor for eating dinner. To continue.
Lane's dad is not present. It is her older sister, and her mom. Older sister leaves dinner early, saying that she had a big lunch, or that she ate late, depending on whether you're watching subs or dubs. Lane then tells her mother, I got an email from somebody in my class. She died last week, and mom does not respond at
Yep.
all.
Her mom
And
looks
then
like a
that's the scene.
Satoshi Kon character who's just there to not react, to just drive home how surreal it is.
Yeah.
I just want to say that Lane's mom is just the "this is fine" dog. Like she's just used to this at this point already.
Yeah, it is just a couple seconds of awkward silence and eating, and then that's just the scene. That's it.
Soup looked good.
Yeah, I was waiting for, like, oh, that's not real, or, oh my god, how could this have happened? But she just doesn't react at all.
That's great, sweetie. Not even
Not
that.
even that. Not even it's great. It's like, I wouldn't even acknowledge that I have a daughter. She doesn't respond to the older daughter either. She just desperately wished she didn't have children and is just trying to will it into existence.
Maybe she too is disassociating. Maybe it's genetic.
Yeah, Lane leaves, and then she just goes, huh, what? Did somebody say something?
This is not my beautiful house.
So I feel away.
I am not this beautiful one. Anyways,
Kind of
thankfully,
fucked up email today. Great kid, don't get cocky.
this scene is very weird, but I feel like it gives us the least to talk about because it's the weirdness. The purpose served by the weirdness is self-evident, I think.
Though, hey, I hope you bring up screenshots again, because, God, just this shot of her on the bed. Hey, there are also stuffed animals next to the bed. I didn't notice that the first time. There's just more. And also, I swear those power lines are in a different place.
Is that a fucking Jigglypuff?
It might be.
Second from the left, is that a Jigglypuff?
Oh, it might be a
Tsunuki,
Clefairy.
but I think it's a Jigglypuff. Anyways,
It's legally distinct from a Jigglypuff. Thank you.
we get one of the more important things for understanding Lane, like meme-wise. If you want to be a memer in the Serial Experiments Lain fandom, you need to know about this bear Kirigumi. Or is it Kirigumi or
Okay.
Kigurumi?
Kigurumi, and this
Okay.
rules that Lane is a furry. Finally. Representation matters, people.
Lane's bear pajamas are very adorable, and I'm glad that she has them.
I'm gonna make a joke. Brace yourselves. Ready?
Alright.
Lane's bear pajamas are the cat's pajamas. Thank you. Continue.
No, they're not. They're Lanes.
The next
Lucas is
scene.
gonna take
Wait,
out
hold on a
all my
sec.
audio. I'm not even in this podcast anymore.
I appreciate that scene of somebody coming up outside the house, and just the way the silhouettes just vanish as the car lights shine in, are just it's so good.
Whoa. Can we go back to the Kigurumi for just a moment? I want to
Gotcha.
say, like,
Fine.
as a like seriously honest to God furry, I also own a Kigurumi, and sometimes like when I'm having a bad mental health day, I'll put it on just because it takes me out of my head and helps me focus my thoughts. Because I can like bury myself in the persona or in that feeling of being in the Kigurumi. And maybe that's what Lane is doing. Like, that's relatable to me. Anyway,
Yeah.
now we
She's just vibing.
All right. Before we start talking about the next scene, I want to say something I forgot to mention during the first scene. The term they use for computer in this show is Navi. This is an actual old term for a computer. It was coined by some douchebag at Apple, whose name I can't remember because I just can't be bothered. It is short for Knowledge Navigator. It didn't catch on, I think, because it's pretentious as hell.
Mm-hmm.
But Lane loves its Apple references, so they have to call all the computers navies.
Of course, if you're a Battle Network fan, then you're just like, ah, yes, net navies. I understand completely.
I thought that, literally thought about that immediately.
See, in Battle Network, it's not pretentious because, like, they literally navigate. You see them navigating.
Yeah, they're there.
It's not fucking discount Steve Jobs sitting in an office that's too expensive for what he does, pretending to navigate this vast ocean of knowledge. This is going to be the first disconnect. Lane, the show Lane loves Apple. I don't like Apple, and I will take shots at them any chance I get.
Get fucked.
next time you visit me and my spouse, you should just talk about how much you hate Apple because my spouse also hates Apple, so you can bond over that.
I get that this was made in the 90s and Apple wasn't quite Apple yet, but they were still on their way. Steve Jobs has always been a complete dick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the apple is what the serpent tempted Eve with.
God damn it.
It was fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
That was a fucking fig. It wasn't a goddamn apple. That was a fucking pun that Latin artists made up.
Because Malus is apple and also evil. Ah!
Anyways, next scene. Lane talks to her dad who wasn't at dinner for some reason.
Alright, dad scene. Begin, Loka.
I really like this scene. The scene starts with Lane awkwardly asking her dad for a new computer. Her dad waxes philosophical about the internet. Talks about how Lane should be upgrading to a new computer because it's important to be online, be connected with your peers, and not be left behind in the technological race.
Yeah, so important to mention, the person coming back in the previous scene was probably Lane's dad. He came back with a new computer part, and boy, you should see his rig.
I'm gonna pull up
Just
a shot so I can count how many monitors he has.
1, 2, 3, 4,
He has
5,
8
6,
monitors.
7. Oh,
What
geez.
appears to be like 4 or 5 towers.
Can't even see all of them from this angle.
Lane's dad is a capital G gamer, folks.
I really genuinely love Elaine's dad in the scene. I've seen some people say that he seems kind of sinister, especially at the end. But I feel like he's actually being really patient with Lane.
His words are really patient.
The
laughter in the sub is kind of upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
The laughter in the dub is also weird. I feel like it's weird on purpose.
Yeah, it's probably.
Yeah!
One of the things, Lane does not have very many out-and-out dub haters because it's just too niche to really have that problem, I think.
Oh, that sounds like a solvable problem. So the dub is no, go on.
But the people that do like to make fun of weird parts of the dub, no one has ever brought up that Lane's dad's laugh, to my knowledge, because I think they know that it's just as weird in the sub.
That's
But
just
yeah,
that's just good voice acting when the voice actor can capture the weirdness. Continue.
I've been in Lane's situation a lot. I really hate asking my parents to buy things for me. So I
Hmm.
have just been just stock still in a room trying to work up the courage to ask for something. And I really like Lane's dad's way of handling this. I don't remember his name. I don't think I ever will. Sorry. I was going to call him Dad instead of Lane's dad.
Mm-hmm.
I like
My
how Dad explains why she needs a new Navi, why wanting a new Navi is a good thing, not a bad thing, and then doesn't like goad her into saying anything, just sits and waits.
Uh, Also, I should ask Alice, hey, as a fellow sub-watcher, I feel like they had Lane's dad on like a different mic or something, or like he was closer to his mic. There is something about his audio that just sounded different
There is
to me
something weird
than
going
Lane.
on with his audio. I'm not sure. Um, Actually, I do know what it is. It's okay. Have you ever been watching a movie and like you could hear that someone did a line ADR? That's the
Yeah.
effect. It sounds like he's an ADR, but they're all an ADR. It's
I was going to
literally what
say,
it
this is
is. I don't
animation!
know how they managed to do that, but they did. It's kind of
That's
upsetting.
amazing. Uh-huh.
It's just he's just not he's not real. He's not really there.
A couple of things I wanted to mention. I was not particularly sure about Lane's OS. Dad's OS is a real OS. That is Next OS. Next
Really?
was the company that Steve Jobs founded after he was fired from Apple.
Huh.
This is a real OS that you could do, and you could do these things that Lane's dad does with that OS.
But why
So
would you want to?
here's my theory for why Lane doesn't have a good computer. Ready? As I told you, I'd bring this up, and I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget.
Go for it.
Why Lane doesn't have a good computer is because of her dad, who has like a super teched out computer, and he's weird, and like he gets like he's that dude who's like gets the smartwatch and just gets like the tech, like the newest tech, just to seem cool, and it's really like disenchanted Lane from getting tech at all. That's my theory.
I mean,
So I was going to
yeah.
say, my theory about why Lane's OS is so weird. Because, Alice, as you mentioned, it seemed very futuristic, but in this scene, Lane says that it's old. And Lane's dad says that it's old.
I know it,
I
it,
think
it drives me to distraction.
I think it's supposed to be an OS designed for children. You
Okay.
remember Microsoft's Bob of how it was designed to be just goofy and childish and quote unquote easy to use?
Yeah, kind of. Okay, I see where you're going here.
I think like that's the stuff with like instead of an actual password, it's just a recording of Lane saying her name because any child could do that.
Yeah.
Um, that's why it's so animated to keep her attention because an infant is supposed to be using this. That's why it reads all the emails out loud automatically because it's possible that when Lane got this, she couldn't read yet. It's
Yeah, and that
still
makes a
really
lot of
weird,
sense.
but I think it's. This is another thing. I'm scared to run this, and I don't know how easily I could find it again, but somebody actually made an operating system based on Lane's communication OS. I have no idea how I even would run it, but
This has such a
I might
niche
try and find
fandom,
that.
says Loka. And then, by the way, this really like weird thing exists because of a fandom that is very, very niche. Like, yep.
Generous, literally just one person did this.
Yeah. Look, as somebody who's a prominent member of the Lunar franchise, I know what it is to be in a niche fandom and have like utterly insane fans who make like just the weirdest content. So yeah.
Okay, that's what you're going for. I thought you meant like, oh, it's a niche fandom, but they had a whole team that could make this OS. Like, no, it's just
No, no,
one.
no, no, no. I know it's like one crazy person, like in a dumpster somewhere. It's just like I am going to make this. I'm going to make the grindery, and we're just like, go for it, buddy. We're rooting for you. Like 40, 30 years later, like I've done it, and we're like, good job.
Who are you again?
Yeah, we forgot who you were. You haven't posted in like 30 years. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Anyways, after Lane's dad does his weird, creepy laugh at the prospect of Lane getting a new computer, we
Oh,
cut to
wait,
a second.
real quick.
Yes?
I should mention something that probably isn't actually important, but God, the fucking, like, I don't know, VTuber avatars of the people Lane's dad is communicating with are
Oh, yeah, we
bizarre.
should talk about how
Headless
dad's chat
butler.
rooms are filled with people who don't have heads.
Yeah, headless casino worker, I
Why?
guess.
And one of them is just straight up
Headless.
in a burlesque outfit, and she doesn't have a head either.
Just normal headless man, okay?
So far, having seen all this about Mr. Dad here, I have no reason to be suspicious of him, and he's a good guy for sure.
Yeah, I think that's everything to say about this scene. Yes, the next
Yep.
scene is very quick. Lane's on the train again, except this time the train comes to a sudden stop.
The train is a metaphor for trains.
People on the train mutter about like what could have happened. Then an announcement comes over the intercom saying that the train, I think it just says, has had an accident. I don't think they clarify what the accident is.
It's Lane, but do continue.
Yes, but Lane
Fuck, I said to be
starts.
optimistic. I lasted 1 hour 12 seconds to continue.
But Lane starts to. I feel like any way I describe this is going to be loaded because Lane starts to see blood drip from the top of the train,
Mm-hmm.
and then she has an extended nightmare sequence.
Blood off the wire.
If I remember correctly, first she's just teleporting all over the city,
Uh,
and then she is right next to the tracks, sees a young girl go underneath the guardrail. I think it's called a guardrail, or it's like something arm. You know what I'm talking about. And run directly in front of the train as Lane yells for her to stop. One of the more iconic parts of this episode, as the girl is running in front of the train, it zooms in on her face. Her face is alternating between several different emotions, including one where instead of having a face, there are just several holes in her face. And I hate it. I hate that face. I fucking hate looking at it. I hate that I watched this episode 3 times. I had to look at that fucking face every time.
He's making that fucking face behind me, isn't he? God damn it.
Shut
It's
up.
also worth
Shut up.
noting that, like, leading up to this, like, we just get some weird shots of, first off, once again, everybody just sort of turns into shadows and this time vanishes, and Lane's just sort of at school. School doesn't look normal, and then she's walking home, and then all of a sudden fog rolls in.
No sirens, so we're not in
All of
Silent
a
Hills.
sudden,
Okay.
train.
No siren. We're okay.
This nightmare. Does anyone have anything to say about this nightmare sequence?
You know, one of the things I know, I'm being a little serious. I'm kind of like, I knew everyone else here was gonna be serious. I figured I'd just kind of be here to like shitpost. I'm gonna be just a bit serious here for a little bit. Like, how quickly it shifts, like from thing to thing to thing, is way quicker than like and disjointed than the rest of the show, where we've noticed it just kind of shifts and shifts and shifts. This is almost like a clip, like really quick, like clip, like to clip. It's like it's so short and like hurried and rushed, and it gave me this sense of like urgency and power, like and like how to put it, like being drawn in, right? Like you're being sucked in because of how quickly it swept through, and how with every, from what I saw, from every like sequential screen, from switch to switch to switch, the camera was drawn in. So like, like if you rewatch this, you'll see like what I'm talking about is like, or at least that's how I experienced it. This is my subjective reality. It's like scene one is like it's just disjointed, and like scene two, like the camera has moved in slightly, and it's like this like more blood, more whatever. Scene three, like it's the camera's even and closer. It's like looking up the ceiling, like the wires, and like scene four, like it's like every scene the camera is panning in incrementally, so you feel like you're being drawn in, and yet like everything's moving so fast. This sense of like being rushed and pulled in is like, it was really compelling to me and familiar to me. As I am on this podcast, I am the foremost expert of being a suicide survivor, and yeah, it's like that feeling of suicidal ideation, that urgency and that compulsion that pulls you in towards death, is like when you're having an episode. That's really, it made me feel like when I have an episode. It was so like scarily familiar.
And I think that's why it was important to have you on this podcast. Because I live under a rock and nothing has ever happened to me. So when weird shit happens, I just go, wow, that's some weird shit. Can't relate to that. But thankfully, by bringing 3 people who have lived lives, they can explain this weird shit in ways that make sense to me.
I don't know if like every person who's survived suicide has that same feeling, like when, or if they even have ideations, right, or urges or compulsions or thoughts the way I do all the time. but for sure, this really like what reminded me. Like it was so familiar. I was like, this. She's having an episode. Like it. I just knew. I was like, oh gosh, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
For me,
So-
that's what it signaled to me. Right. That's the message it sent to me.
Yeah, that's. I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. I don't know if I like back that 100%, but I don't have a better thing this could be a representation of.
I mean, it's definitely a way of reading this. Like it's
Yeah.
definitely there. It's that there is. This is even if there's something in the universe going on here as well. It's also kind of it has taken the form of how an episode like an episode of this type would look like.
Yeah, fiction is inherently subjective. This show even more so.
I mean,
So
and also, I mean, there's also a bit
you're
of
right.
the dissociation there. Like, you can kind of see that sort of disassociative quality to the quickly back and forthness of of movement here, where nothing really seems
Yeah.
to stick because Lane herself cannot stick in the world around her right now. She's just not really able to.
She's just not attached to, like she's attached to things, but in very, how to phrase it, like, it almost feels swingy. There are center points to what she's focused on, but it's constantly shifting.
Mhm.
And transient. She's got like this transient connection to people.
Yeah. Also, to
Jenner,
add on to that point about the girl's face that Luca brought up earlier, I should also add that it's like a slow shift between like screaming and this bizarre, weird smile and the holes. And since that's a slow shift, there's a lot of overlap. So I've just got this real viscerally uncomfortable image of just the whole face with a weird ass smile, which
I'm-
would look creepy enough on its own.
I'm gonna be
Without
honest,
the
Pepper.
holes.
I'm gonna put up the pictures for everything you say except this. If I
Yeah.
have to look at one more fucking frame of this face,
Fair? Oh god, what's the fear of
I'm gonna
like
make it. I'm
holes?
gonna make it my
Cryptophobia.
avatar now.
Cryptophobia? Yeah.
Congratulations! I'm gonna make it my avatar now. No, I'm joking.
Jenner, I will cry and kick you from the server. Please don't make me do this. But anyways, I think giving even more credence to your theory, Jenner, when Lane finally snaps out of this, she is broken out into a sweat.
Yep, that's what.
I
That's
thought
what
she
happens
might have
to
been
me.
crying, but I think looking at her face, it looks more like she's just been sweating.
Yeah.
Found an even worse frame. Nope. Nope, that's
Honey,
just
please.
pure screaming. Nope.
Please, I'm begging you, stop talking about the face.
You don't have to put up pictures. You viewer at home, you just know it's viscerally unpleasant. You do
I
not
won't,
want to
but
see
I'm
the
thinking about
stills.
it. I hate it.
Welcome to Thanks I Hate It, the Serial Experiment Lain podcast. Actually, I want everybody to know I'm here to love Lane. I forgot to mention that at the beginning of this fucking podcast.
Anyways,
This is probably the
Like-
most impactful scene transition. I should preempt this with.
this is one of the ones that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's the old catapult nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
But this is how we know for sure that Lane goes to a public school, because the teacher does not give a shit about anything that is happening to Lane right now.
Mm-hmm.
So what's this? You're having a suicidal episode or a panic attack and you're dissociating? Fuck that. Pay attention to the blackboard. I gotta write in Lisp language.
As somebody with dyscalculia, Lane's like vision blurring on the chalkboard was also relatable to me, because that happened to me all the time in school, where the numbers would just like blur together and make no sense because I have dyscalculia. So yeah.
I should also talk about, I don't know for sure, but I think most of the time you see programming language in this show, it is Lisp, which is a programming language that very few people use or even know exists. And I'm pretty sure it's programming language written on the chalkboard, because of course it is.
Lisp is the cryptid of coding language.
But yeah,
But
we
yes,
go from the train almost missing after that horror show of expressions, just misses. I think it's both Lane and the girl. I think they're both to the side at the end there.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just Lane's not looking great, and then it fades to white, and then it opens back up on Lane crying into her notebook.
but as Lane looks at the blackboard and it blurs, instead of earlier where it just blurred to a blur, here it blurs into different words. It blurs into the sentence, "Come to the wired as soon as you can." And then it cuts to that same sentence being in Lane's email. But before that, she does a fucking Speed Racer reaction shot where they just drew the one frame of Lane and then moved her across the. They just moved her across the background and had the voice actors go, "Ah!" And it's good, it's fine. I just, because I've seen every episode of Speed Racer, I just go, that's the fucking Speed Racer reaction.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about like how Elaine appears to be using some glitches to move around the stages of grief as a pro gamer, because she's completely bypassed the anger and bargaining stages of grief and gone right to depression using this frame perfect trick.
She is kind of clipping in and out of reality.
She's clipping through the 5 stages of grief. She's just clipping through the stage. She's moved. She's out of bounds, and she's moved in, and she's like slipped right past anger and bargaining into depression. So.
Before we talk about the final scene, actually, is there anything anybody wants to say about this scene in the classroom?
Well, I don't know if this will ever be relevant, but let's read the chalkboard, because there's some cursive on here, but it's still English, so technically readable.
We get to learn a
This-
Jenna fact, because you all know this. I wasn't taught cursive in school, so I actually can't read cursive. So everybody else is going to have to tell me what this cursive reads. I
Yeah,
literally
cursive
cannot
sucks
read
ass.
it. Yeah.
But so on top says, when I came home, mother was cooking. Very basic sentence, and you know what? That describes your mother perfectly from what we've seen. Mm-hmm. She was eating when we saw her, but you know, very basic info.
I'm glad you pointed that out. I was going to say, I referred to this as programming language. This actually looks more like an English lesson.
Mm-hmm. So let's see, and or but at the side there. When, if, as, because, you know, basic shit, not actual sentences, but still might be relevant. I don't know. But then, just before the scene cuts out, you're able to see a part of a sentence which says, "If you go, I will," which is ominous. Mm-hmm. And then at the bottom, that's "something is ill, he," and then that cuts off as well.
You know what kills me is that they drew this whole background before they put Lane in, so that sentence does have, like, we know how that sentence starts. Or not we know. We know that sentence has an actual start, but we don't know what it is because they put Lane's cell over the background.
Yep.
Amazing.
Before we talk about the final scene, periodically throughout this episode, they do cut back to the psychedelic screen with text on it. I'm not pointing out all of them, because they're important, but listen, buddy, you're just gonna have to watch the show if you care. This is not meant to be a replacement for the show. This is meant to be a companion for the show. But I did want to talk about
one set of footsteps. It was when you were watching Lane on your own and not listening to this podcast.
We were carrying you then.
and walking single file, I guess, because there are definitely 4 of us.
We're a totem pole.
Yeah.
Just the whole podcast standing on each other's shoulders.
We fused together like Voltron. Shush. Continue. I'll form the head.
I was going to say, I wanted to talk about one of the psychedelic text scenes because I've already used the word iconic once. Sorry. I think it is iconic to Lane. It gets mentioned a lot, especially if you talk about the first episode, because like more people have seen the first episode than any other episode, so people have seen this scene that didn't watch the rest of Lane.
Mm-hmm.
It's what appears to be a conversation. The first sentence says, "What does it feel like to die?" And then the response says, "It really hurts."
I got big
And
things to say about this one, but you go
in the English
first.
subtitle, they put a smiley face after hurts.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. I kept looking at it. I didn't see anything that could have been an emoticon in the Japanese text, but I'm not very familiar with Japanese emoticons.
I'm sorry.
And this
As an
is
expert on Japan, as a person has gone to it twice, I don't. I mean, those aren't what I'm familiar with Japanese emoticons looking like. So yeah.
and Alice. This is what I was. I think you were on to this earlier about. Th- Chisa is a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Some of this text is coming from Chisa, and some of it is being asked to her. And this one scene establishes that, and that's why I'm pretty sure it's the last psychedelic text scene we get. And
Mm-hmm.
then you just have to go back and watch with that knowledge that sometimes this is Chisa, sometimes it's someone talking to Chisa. I don't have anything else to say. I just think it is a very good combination of naive and nightmarish. It's a back and forth that really establishes what Lane is all about to the extent that it is about anything.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to say anything before I talk really deep and serious about this? I'm not joking, by the way.
What you got to say?
It would appear not.
All right, so yeah, and my friends, these four poor souls, know that I'm kind of this weird person who really looks for the narrative in things, and I'm always looking for messages that may or may not be there. And one of the bits I was going to do is find like something silly that could absolutely have nothing to do with anything that goes on in this show. It's like a bit at the end, and so look forward to that. But in this, I am being completely sincere. You know that meme where it's like, wow, cool robot, and the person's looking at the robot and the war is bad is shooting over their head? I'm the inverse of that meme where I'm missing the robot completely and I'm looking up at the war is bad like, ah, hell yeah. So for me, like, again, I hope I don't make this comment too many times, but as basically the suicide expert of this group, and I hope I always am only the only person who is an expert in this, in anything in this group. Um, when a person I care about, die, it does hurt. It hurts me. It's painful. It's probably painful for that person I care about to die, and it's definitely painful for me too. It hurts a lot. No smiley face. That's all. That's my serious time. I brought down the mood. I'm going to start
Right.
making jokes again.
I just wanted to give you a berth. Sometimes it's appropriate for me to jump in with a side comment, sometimes it's not, so I wanted to make sure you had time to say everything. Also, my internet cuts out a lot, so if there's a long pause, sometimes I don't know if that's a real pause or a local internet pause.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I try to do is like I try to control for tone, but like I know, unfortunately, like, this show is spoiled for me. I know it's gonna go really deep into this topic that I have.
Jenner, you promised you
know,
wouldn't?
But so I just, I'm gonna. What I'm trying to do to compensate is be silly until I can't. Right. So let's keep going.
Anyways, final scene.
Blood splatters in the shadows are sometimes blue now. There's my takeaway. That's all I gotta contribute.
Sometimes they're lobster blood. Lane is walking home, and she comes across Chisa Yamada. Yamoda. Fuck.
Yamoto, yeah.
Lane turns around, says, I think she says, Chisa, is that you? And then Chisa vanishes with a ribbon effect.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple specific shots. As Chisa walks past Lane,
Mm-hmm.
she vanishes very abruptly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know how normally when something vanishes in animation, they'll be drawn at different transparencies, or, they do something to make the vanishing happen.
Yeah, no.
They don't do that. They just stop drawing Chisa.
Yeah, she pops in out of nowhere, pops out.
Do you remember what the ribbon looks like? What color it is?
I think it's blue.
White. It's like a bluish white. She turns into a ghost, and then the ghost unravels.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it in the...
Yeah,
it's mostly white.
Ghost colored. You know that color.
All right, keep going. We're cool. I forgot because I wasn't focused on that. I was focused on how weird, like jarring that was.
God, just this LSD dream emulator ass scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, we get a close up of Cheese's eyes, and she looks so fucking tired.
Mm-hmm.
Relatable.
And then the episode ends with Lane alone in the nightmare shadow as JoJo style to be continued shows up. And this is another operating system reference. The B, which is colored. Let me check the colors. Blue B, red E is a reference to BOS, which I forget what that is, but that is another operating system that was around at the time. They super love referencing operating systems I've never fucking heard of.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say, like, look what happens when you speed run the 5 stages of grief. You jump right to depression, and now look at this. Look what's happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I have a question for you,
That
Alice. Or if we're done, like, talking about the show.
just about to say that is our summary of the first episode of Lane. I have a couple of
Yeah.
one theory, one thing that I want to talk about.
Yeah, I have a
Oh,
question
two
for
things
you,
I forgot.
Alice, before Luca is serious. Alice,
Yes.
as the foremost expert on Alice's, what is your opinion on the character Alice in the show so far?
I do not necessarily know enough to have a real opinion on her, but she does seem like it does seem like she has an actual connection to Lane, whether Lane appreciates that or not. And she has a connection to the people around her. I'm curious to see if going forward we see more of her, and also if Lane is able to sort of appreciate the connections that her fellow students have to each other, and also the connections that they kind of have or may have with her. So we will see.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm gonna keep asking you as an Alice your opinions on the character Alice.
We are all the same, of course. Every Alice is
Yes, every Alice knows each other.
We're a great, stupid hive mind.
Anyways, I wanted to talk about one thing that is often brought up. I mentioned earlier there were the hands with the ghost or the ectoplasm or the whatever coming out of them, and people don't really have a consensus on what that means. One of the things that was pointed out to me is that paranoid schizophrenics that have visual hallucinations, one of the most common hallucinations is that they start excreting something from their fingertips.
Yep.
Combine that with the train where Lane is shouting at voices that aren't there, and later where she talks to her computer and the computer talks back. It creates the idea that Lane could be paranoid schizophrenic.
Well, or she's just having a breakdown. If you have
Or she's
a really,
having a breakdown,
really
right.
extreme breakdown, you can slip into like a paranoid schizophrenic type state. Hey everybody, I studied psychology, so we will be talking
correct
about
me
this.
if I say something stupid. Don't hesitate. I bring this up not to just be like, oh, I get to say schizophrenia and shit like that. I bring it up because this now creates a problem of like, is that what they want us to think forever, or is that what they want us to think at first? The best example I can think of this is the movie The Shining, where a lot of the stuff in the first half is it ghost or are they going stir crazy? And then by the second half they go, no, it's just ghosts.
It is ghosts.
So many people latched on to the idea that they were just going stir crazy in the first half that they want that to be true the whole movie, even though it's not. Sorry, it's ghosts. He couldn't have gotten out of the freezer on his own. The ghost let him out of the freezer. It's ghosts.
It's ghosts emphasized by just stir craziness.
By the way, I've always loved the fact that Stephen King was always unhappy about the fact that Kubrick vehemently did not want the ghost to be real and wanted to actually be this, that it was just Jack was just that way and it's his personal demons, and Stephen King kept going, no, they're actual ghosts. It's a ghost
gotta be
story.
Ghosts.
You know,
Gotta be ghosts.
What I find interesting is that Stephen King was hit by a car that one time, and that's just something to think about.
Someone had to say it.
Something to reflect
I
upon.
knew I shouldn't have fucking brought up The Shining.
You will regret this.
Anyways, I wanted to mention that I don't put any stock into it. I don't
Yeah.
think that thinking of Lane in that way adds anything to the story.
All right.
It's
Yeah.
like
See,
the
I.
people who think that the ending of Eco is in heaven. Spoilers for Eco, kind of. It doesn't add anything to the story if that's true. I think it makes the story worse, so I don't believe it.
Yeah. More of. Yeah. I don't know quite what Lane Steele is yet, but it is impressive how like she manages to be like very self-focused without focusing on the self at all. Because again, I'm going back to just how often she just does not interact with the world around her. People either just go sepia tone and stay stock still or vanish, and yet it never seems like it's done in a self-absorbed manner. Like even when everybody else disappears, Lane feels like she's just at most a terrified observer of what she's seeing.
Yeah. Lane reminds me a lot of Alice in that she's always in do not disturb mode on the chat program, but I just ignore that and message her whenever I feel like it.
It makes I don't like the beep. Discord makes it beep, and I don't like it.
You could just turn it up in the settings.
Wait, you can?
Yeah.
She did. It was by turning it to Do Not Disturb.
Yeah. See, bam, fucking BTFO'd.
Sometimes you just don't want to mention, you don't want to pay attention to the boodaloops.
Yep. Alright. Especially when, like, I'm in Japan messaging a bunch of pictures at 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll just say that on the podcast, you almost got me in trouble in one of my law classes because you kept shoving pictures into the Discord and they forgot to silence my phone before the class started.
And I didn't realize, like, I had forgotten that Japan is like 11 hours ahead of America. When I was in Japan, I was trying to send them pictures of all the cute food that I was going to eat. And it was like, what, like 2 p.m. where you were? It was like some, like 2 a.m. where I was. Yeah.
Just make sure not to murder anybody with a clock statue or you'll be in real big trouble.
And what else are we supposed to be
Anyways.
talking about?
I'm trying to decide which thing to say first. I think I'll start with this one because I want you all to have more time to think about it. So, I watch a lot of the YouTuber Nick Spears' videos, and she has said something several times that the first shot of a movie teaches you how to watch it. I didn't go to film school, so I might be speaking. Oh, it might be. I am speaking out of my ass. I think that the same is true for TV shows, but instead it's the first episode. The first episode of a TV show, more importantly than setting up the plot, is going to set up how you should watch the rest of the TV show. With Lane, I think this is almost self-evident. It's weird. It's going to be fucking weird. The episode's name is weird.
Yep.
Things that happen, not much happens in this episode, but you're going to be obsessing over what didn't happen.
You love to see it. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'm. Actually, that's the statement I want to end the episode with. Is there anything like there was a question you wanted to ask us at the end of the episode?
Yes, but I'm not there yet.
Okay.
Because
So
there's
I'll
one
wait
more
for
thing I
that.
want to talk about before that.
So, I don't know, even the first shot of Lane episode 1 is kind of indicative, because I'm just looking through this real quick, and it's just a whole lot of varied angles. Nothing too bizarre compared to what you see in the actual episode, other than, God, that shot of just a weird... Oh, God, it's been ages since I've taken film studies, so the underneath shot of just cars and people walking by.
Worm's Eye View.
Probably. But yeah, just that shot that makes it look imposing, and also the way the car... One of the cars just animates in a flash. Like, it's there, it's gone. I didn't notice that when actually watching it, but just there's something strange about it.
Yeah.
I'm watching this scene.
Off-putting when you actually pay attention to it.
The car turns to run you, the viewer, over, I think, is what's unsettling about it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't follow the road. It comes right at you.
Yeah, and then there's like another car that goes by. Just would not have noticed if I wasn't actually looking for it.
Yeah, the first couple scenes are just like, hey, you better be paying attention. I told Luca after we finished watching this first episode that this show was giving me, hey, we're just gonna try some stuff out here vibes, right? It gave me this sense that this was like no pun. I'm serious here, like a very experimental thing that they were just like trying some shit. So yeah,
Oh, I mean, yeah, they're definitely throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what fits, seeing what
yeah.
works. Which works. I mean, it's a good way to go about it.
I don't know much about, actual animation, but I did watch Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, and man, animation is neat. Animation
The
techniques,
animation is
dang.
bullshit.
Dang, good work, everyone. Good work.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned animation because I was going to say something earlier and completely forgot. Lane is animated differently from most of the characters in the show. I forget the exact specifics of it. I think she's at a lower frame rate. They might have also done different techniques just for drawing her frames. But
Also, she I like her hair and she's cute.
It looks like she cut it herself.
her hair is cool.
It kind of looks like she cut
I,
it herself, which I honestly kind of think she did, having seen her mom.
I like her hair accessory. Also, her eyes are so fucking weird.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tiny ass pupils. Anyways, the one thing I wanted to say before I get to the question that I kind of want to end the podcast, this episode on, is that I mentioned earlier the trinity of weird anime, which I consider Neon Genesis Evangelion, Revolutionary Girl Utena, Serial Experiments Lain. These names kind of follow a trend. I think nowadays Madoka has kind of turned this into a quartet, and there's probably some other weird shit, but to me, Ava, Utena, Lane are the holy trinity of what the fuck is happening. I consider Lane to be the most difficult to understand of these.
Yeah.
I think Ava, super straightforward comparatively. And honestly, part of Ava's problem was that the last two episodes, this is going to be weird to say out loud, were too straightforward. They are telling the audience exactly what is happening, but nobody's listening because they're so weirded out. And as the dub directors have said in the commentary, the rest of the show is teaching you to not listen to them. And then the final two episodes, they want you to listen to them. Like, of course, it didn't work. Utena has a straightforward plot at first, but it kind of breaks down, and then by the end, it focuses more on the Gonzo shit. But you can understand what's happening emotionally. No, I don't know what the deal is with the stopwatch. No, I don't know where Akio got that ice cream sundae from, or that milkshake, or whatever it was.
It's
But
turning all the boys to the yard. Come on.
Obviously.
Lane is just on a different level. It's similar to Utena and Ava in the sense that you can get through emotionally, but like, what the fuck is happening? And I feel like you can tell that just from watching the first episode of each.
Yeah, like, episode of one of Ava is, more or less kind of normal. You see there are things attacking, you see basic ass military units try to take it down, but they're not working.
It is almost comically straightforward compared to everything else in Ava.
Fucking Eddie from Ed, Ed and Eddie is killed and
every single missile hit the target.
Just killed in the blast. But
I feel like if somebody showed me that scene in the Netflix dub, I would just become super depressed because there's no way it's as good.
Luca, would you say that Neon Genesis...
If you say Grace, I will kick you from this podcast. I will not hear the word grace. I will not tolerate the word grace. In this family, we do not say grace before our meals. We fucking pray. Get over it.
Well, then I guess we'll just move on.
I don't care that Lanky Kong is lacking in grace. Get the hell out of here.
If any of you see the DK rap, you will be thrown out.
Well, I guess I might as well just leave now, because it's inevitable if I'm here. But yeah, like...
You actually do reference the DK rep quite a bit in our games. It comes up pretty frequently.
And yeah, I think you're going to mention Utna is also relatively straightforward, but
Yeah,
it has a
like
hook.
yeah, like
Oh, whoa,
I can
whoa,
figure
okay,
out the
whoa,
stakes
whoa,
of.
whoa, whoa. There's nothing straight about Utna. Anyway,
All right.
continue.
I mean, you're right
Uh,
though. Like I hadn't really thought of it in those terms, but you're right that like the other anime we kind of tout as being the sort of the pinnacle of weird tend to have something in them that a viewer can grasp a hold of, like a plot wise. And one episode in, and Lane has already refused to do that.
yeah, like I can figure out the stakes of Evangelion. You know, Utna, unusual setting, but I can at least parse what's going on. Like in this fantasy uh, environment, I can figure out. Okay, this is sort of kind of the rules of what's going on. I get you. Sionji bad. He did a slap. No, don't appreciate that. But yeah, Lane, like I don't know what's going to happen in episode 2 because I think I want to say the most prominent thing that happens in this episode is the email where it's mentioned that God's here. I feel like that should be important, but I don't know how. I don't
And
know how
this
this affects the world.
and this brings me to what I want to be the final segment of this episode. So if anyone has anything else to say, you can just say it afterwards because it doesn't matter what I want. You can I you should all say your piece. But I want to have a little segment that I'm going to call What's the Plot? I'm going to ask all three of you what you think the plot is.
I should probably go last because I'm joking.
What I mean by this is that I want you to tell me not necessarily what happened in today's episode, but what you think this episode was about and what you think is going to be expanded on in future episodes.
I'm going last because mine's a joke.
You already said that.
Yep.
And if you don't mind going first, Alice, I would like you to go first.
In this episode, a girl named Lane gets a spooky internet telegram that is haunted and continues to be haunted, and then she wakes up and it was all a dream. Except that it's not a dream, she is still haunted.
So you think they're going to lean heavily in on the ghost Chisa.
I don't think it's gonna be Ghost Chisa. I think Ghost Chisa is the first of many ghosts. It's ghosts
Oh
all
no, this is going to be ghost stories,
it's
but with a
ghosts
good
all
dub.
the way down.
You'll be visited by, let me check the episode count, 13
13.
ghosts.
The same ones that were on that one series of Scooby Doo. Also, I should clarify. I get why some people like the Ghost Stories dub. I like the idea of the Ghost Stories dub. I think
Yeah,
that
the
they really
idea's
dropped
good.
the ball. The
It's
only
just,
joke that has aged well is that they make jokes about the Hells Angels killing Vic Mignogna.
Nice.
That joke's good. I think they say,
yeah.
like, nobody ever saw Vic Mignogna again and the world is a better place now.
Yeah, shame they couldn't have done better with that one, because, yeah, the idea was
Uh-huh.
good.
But that brings us to our next contestant, Fefner. What do you
Okay,
think the plot is?
feel like I could almost make a guess, but I don't quite have the threads lined up correctly. Part of the problem I'm
You're onto something earlier.
part of the problem I'm having is just I feel like I need episode 2 for context of episode 1.
Honey,
Like
I
it's
have
just
bad news. That feeling's not going to go away.
like as long as something similar happens, I can at least put 1 and 2 together. Ah,
You're not,
God, so like
you
okay,
won't
so
say it
God's
now, but you
back.
said it earlier, and I'm tempted to just bring it back against you and force you to commit to it.
Alright, maybe when I'm done with this. Alright, so God is back again. Uh, I guess just going off the fact that, like, everything is almost sort of normal pre-suicide. Uh, just everything suicide and afterwards is in this sort of unreality. I don't know if that's specifically because of Lane. It probably is. She's the point of view, and just the way we see the world seems to be very relevant to her sort of personality and her lack of actually really interacting with the world directly. But yeah, it's basically just God's back, and now Lane is just real fucked up about thinking about life. Because there's just that scene of
God
her
is back
sitting
and you're
in
gonna
bed,
be in trouble. Hey,
just
hey,
All
no
God
around
is
me
expression.
back.
are familiar faces. Sorry, good.
Yeah, just expressionless Lane. She has just. I don't think the second train scene was like a flashback or anything.
The train
I
is a
think
metaphor for
it's.
trains.
I think it's just she is thinking about death now. Can't quite
Mhm.
figure out the face thing. Don't wanna. Uh, but yeah, it is. Part of it is just hard to figure out what might
So,
quote unquote truly be going on, and I don't know if what's truly going on is even important as just how Lane views everything.
so yeah, let me help you synthesize this. You probably don't need the help, but I'm going to try and help anyways. You're saying this is going to go more in a character study direction. This isn't about the
Hmm.
plot. This is about Lane and how she
Yeah, like
reacts to these situations.
I can't see much plot happening. Like maybe, hey, God's back, and now
And
things
this time it's
might be
personal.
happening in real life, quote unquote, whatever real life even is anymore. But that doesn't matter.
It's weird. For some reason on the internet, every picture of a river turned to a picture of blood.
Fucked up.
Every every firstborn user just had their internet accounts deleted.
Judgment is upon us, but only for those of you who are online.
I'm sorry, but the idea of the 10 plagues of the internet is hysterical to me.
See, I mean, I always want to go back and change mine to actually, the real plot is that this is just like the Book of Revelation, but like in anime, and also there are computers. Obviously, Lane is John the Revelator, and like she's been approached by the Godhead through an intermediary, and the world is obviously going to end pretty soon. The wires are bleeding human blood, so seal judgment time,
Alice,
baby.
You wouldn't
Alice, you have no
download the
idea.
Antichrist.
I was gonna say, Alice, you have no idea how much I want to watch an anime version of the Book of Revelations.
Just,
Oh
just
god.
read about Zilla the Hutt. You basically have the whole thing.
Hell yeah.
The
But that
moral of Serial Experiments Lane is that you should just stop being online. Stop it.
Oh,
Oh, you're stealing my fucking joke, Fefner. I'm so
Sorry.
mad.
that brings
She's
us.
just gonna shut her computer down, and suddenly everything will look normal. Lane herself will be at whatever frames per second everybody else is at. No more blood
Fafner,
splatters in the shadows.
Fafner Jenner's been thinking about this literally for 24 hours.
I'm so upset. Continue. Go on. I'm
Fafner,
still doing it, Fefner. Fuck you.
Fafner, I accept your answer. We're now moving on to Jenner. Jenner, what do you think the plot is?
The plot of this episode is how you kids won't get off your damn internet, so it's gonna rot your brains.
I believe that this brings our episode to a close.
I think the moral of Serial Experiments Lane is to love Lane, and I'm looking forward to loving Lane. I want very much to love Lane.
I'll kill in the lane of, yeah. That's fine.
We will see you all in the next episode where we cover Layer 02.
I'm
Girls.
gay.
Adieu. Wait, no, that was no, that wasn't the right one. Damn it.
see ya.
Good night, everyone.